Sometimes you just need to kick back and relax, and that's never been easier with the new Yamatai Onsen bundle. However, before you draw the bath and kick back, is the bundle actually worth your hard-earned money? Today, we're going to find out. Firstly, a disclaimer: this set was gifted to me by Funcom. Just like all my other reviews, that will in no way affect my opinions of this set, nor will it affect my recommendation or lack thereof. So without further ado, let's get started. The Yamatai Onsen bundle comes in at 1,659 Crom coins as of April 2024, which is just under $14. The bundle contains a lamp, the Onsen Bath, 3 different Onsen Rock placeables, a water pump, a water bucket, a decorative wall painting, and 3 building pieces, the Yamatai Onsen foundation, ceiling, and walls. So, let's start at the beginning with the lamp. The lamp is quite a simple item. Its design is nice and quaint, made of carved stone with patterns in the rock that are consistent across the entire bundle. The light source is a candle in the centre of the lamp, with a large plate of rock creating almost a hat that sits over the top. The light itself is very warm but quite dim. It's basically identical to the light from the oil lamps. They're not the most efficient light source, they are used mostly for very small amounts of spotlighting, but they suit the aesthetic of the set very well. That being said, I do wish they were a little brighter. The Onsen Bath is the main attraction of this set. It shares design fundamentals with the rest of the bundle, being made of engraved stone and clay on the bottom, leading into a darker wooden trim with a rock backrest at the rear. The bath comes with water inside it and a subtle aura of steam around it. As for sitting inside the bath, it works as it should. You walk up, press interact, and you'll get into the sitting pose. You can get a little caught up on the steps if you approach it from an angle, so it's best to interact when you're stood head on. You can also use the ghost mechanic to slot thralls into the bath. Strangely, this bath does also count as a seat for the Tavern system, so if you wanted to create a bathhouse tavern, you absolutely can. The bath does have one specific bug that I've found, which isn't exclusive to the bath itself, it does exist in other items too. I'll give you more details later on in the bug section. Overall though, the baths are surprisingly good, work as they should, and even go a bit further than expected with thrall and tavern patron accessibility. The Onsen Rocks come in 3 variations, with a large single rock, a hollowed out water-filled single rock, and a smaller stack of rocks, all of which have the same engravings present throughout the bundle. There isn't really much more to say about these items, they're purely decorative, but they suit the rest of the set quite well and match up with what you'd expect to see from a spa. The water pump and bucket are both decorative pieces. The bucket is a standard affair, full of water with the exterior bearing engravings that appear across the bundle, the bucket itself being made of a more tanned wood and slathered with what looks like a clay housing. Simple, but quite nice. The water pump is much larger, coming up to around chest height. It's a wooden tube with a clay housing around the bottom, footed by a small pile of rocks. If you interact with the pump, it turns on, the hollow tube emitting steam and a stream of water flowing from the mouth, which will flow for about a foundation and a half before fading away. However, if the stream hits a surface before it fades, and that includes the water of the Onsen Bath, it creates a gentle water splash particle effect. There is a very minor bug with this, but again, I'll mention it in the bug section. These are surprisingly nice, and the slightly intelligent water and surface collision works well. I do wish the water ran a little bit faster, but that's a very minor nitpick. Overall, quite good. The wall painting is a very simple interpretation of a Japanese kakajiku, a hanging scroll used to display paintings or other art. There's 3 hung from a single rod attached to a wall, depicting a fairly simple scene of waves and leaves. On close inspection they appear to be more of a bamboo texture, which adds a lot to the aesthetic. Very simple, very effective, and for onsen spas and even Yamatai builds in general, these are quite nice. Finally, the building pieces. I didn't expect to see these in this bundle, but they are here. It's not a full set of course, you get walls, ceilings and foundations which are used to create this bathhouse. This build is actually a recreation by one of the Coffee Cult Discord members, Hikumai, who posted this build in our building showcase channel. I love seeing people's builds, so if you haven't, come join the Discord, link in the description. This build is probably the perfect showcase of how to use these building pieces. As there are only 3 items, it's very bare bones and you would probably struggle to make a build out of those pieces alone, but when used with other sets, they really shine. The foundations are simple bamboo with an engraved clay footer, and the walls are basically the same. The ceilings are also just the top of the foundations, very simple, and they're not trying to be extravagant or overly decorative, which I think suits the rest of this bundle quite well. You can actually see through the wall pieces a little, which I think opens up a lot of possibilities with light and design, which can make the build feel a little more open on close inspection, but from a distance still look well constructed. These pieces work particularly well with stable, lattice, Yamatai and Numidian, but I think they're probably a bit more flexible than they initially seem, though because there are only 3 pieces, they can be a bit restrictive. I also wouldn't be surprised if these pieces work quite well for a Yamatai garden design. Overall, a very nice addition to this set that adds a little touch of flavour to your onsen spas without trying to go over the top and steal the show. Now, as for the bugs I mentioned earlier, I've found 3 of them. Firstly, an issue with the baths, though this isn't exclusive to them. If you enter the bath with armour and remove it while sat down, or vice versa, you are then unable to jump, roll or attack when you get back up. This issue can be fixed by dying, as it resolves itself, well, after death. This issue is not specifically related to the bath, it exists with the Numidian stockade and presumably other items that force you into a locked animation. I have bug reported it, unfortunately it's very easy to avoid, just don't put on or remove armour when you're actually in the bath. The second bug is a small one with the water pump. If you remove the pump through the construction hammer when it's turned on and generating the water splash particle effect, the particles don't disappear. For me this fixes when I leave and re-enter the game, but I'm not sure how it would disappear on a live server. I'm hoping it's when the area is de-rendered. I've also bug reported this, though it is a quite small problem in general, as I've not noticed any performance issues coming from these particle effects remaining in place. I also noticed that the particle effects sometimes do not generate properly on certain player-made structures. Namely, the water flows through the Yamatai Onsen pieces, and sometimes works as expected on other pieces like regular Yamatai, but not always. This is quite a minor issue, as it does seem 100% consistent on the baths, which is where most people will point their water pumps to, but it is worth noting that on player-made structures, sometimes the water particles do not appear. Finally, a smaller graphical issue, the onsen flooring can create moire at certain angles, which is an unsightly rippling effect. This happens when fine details are very close to each other. I doubt this is something that can be fixed without changing the texture of the item, but it's worth noting as it is noticeable on occasion. So we've looked at everything in detail, but is the Yamatai Onsen set any good? Honestly, I'm pleasantly surprised. I know initial reactions were very dubious given the whole Yamatai Tavern and Pillowgate fiasco last chapter, understandably so, but I feel like this bundle has been executed very well. It includes the features I would expect, and even some I didn't, with a good variety of items. Price-wise, I think there's something interesting to note here. If we think back to the Lost Pirate bundle from Chapter 3, that set cost basically the same as this and included a few less items. Given it did have an armour, a weapon, a banner and a pet skin, so slightly more complex items than exist here, but I feel like just based on contents and quantity, this bundle has a bit more bang for your buck at the same price point. However, the real question is, do I recommend this bundle? Well, whilst I like it, I think it's going to be a very subjective choice. $14 is still a little too expensive for my tastes. I would say $10 for this is probably a bit more reasonable, but the difference between pricing and contents is not as vast as it's been with other sets. I'm personally not a huge lover of Yamatai, so if you were going to use this bundle occasionally, I probably wouldn't recommend it. It's very nice, but not a must-have. However, if you play a Yamatai character or you just really love the aesthetic, I think you would probably get some good use out of this bundle. It's very high quality, you get a good amount of items, and if you can see yourself using it regularly, I think I would recommend it in that case, as I think you would get your money's worth. As I mentioned, expectations were quite low for Yamatai Onsen given the issues with the last Yamatai bundle, but again, I'm pleasantly surprised. The bugs I encountered were fairly minor, the interactable items have all the expected functions and even some unexpected ones, and everything in the bundle is very cohesive in both purpose and design. Unfortunately, it's not so good of a deal that it's a must-have for everyone, but if you're a fan of the Yamatai aesthetic and love a good bathhouse or spa, I think this bundle is at least worth some serious consideration. And there we have it, my review of the Yamatai Onsen bundle. Thank you for watching, and of course a massive thanks to our wonderful esteemed coffee cultists for continuing to support the channel over on Patreon. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm happy to say I've been pleasantly surprised by this set, and to be honest, I might even do an Onsen Tavern build soon. I'll see what I can come up with. Again, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.